Hello, and welcome to the C3 Method podcast with your host, Robert Polenic. Our goal is to educate you on everything health and fitness related with a clear, concise, and customized approach. We want you to know what you need to know and how to apply it in a way that fits you best. Today's podcast number 2311. We're going to talk about contest prep, and specifically, we're going to talk about that we should crash early. What in the world does that mean? Why would we want to crash during a contest prep? What I want to do today is discuss 5 benefits to starting a contest prep aggressive. Often, when people start contest preps, they make small changes to get small progressions, and then as those progressions plateau, they make bigger and bigger and bigger changes, and then at the end of the process, they're making huge changes where somebody's doing like an hour of fasted cardio, extra low food, a bunch of other crazy things. Maybe they're doing a bunch of circuits in their training to burn more calories. It seems to be at the end, they do the most insane stuff to hurry up and catch up. And then when they get to the show, they're completely destroyed because everything they did at the very end was absolutely miserable. And it was in their worst physical state. So it was just a collective mess along the way. We can invert this. We can crash early. We can start really aggressive and then taper down the intensity of what we do as we get closer to the show. And that actually makes for a much better result. I am currently dieting to get as lean as I can by the end of the year. I just want to get shredded. I just felt like it. My wife did 3 shows last year. I helped her do 3 shows in figure. She did great. She qualified and we went to nationals. So pretty awesome. And that was just exciting to see her lose 40 pounds, reclaim the body that she wanted to have. She's less than 10 pounds over her stage weight now, so it's super awesome. Very excited, very happy for her. So then we were saying that this year, it's like, heck, why don't I have some fun and get super shredded and get lean and kind of do what she got to do last year, and I'll get to do it for myself this year. To start the process, I actually lost 30 pounds in the first 40 days. So I did what I'm going to talk about in today's podcast. I started very aggressive. I mean, crazy aggressive. 30 pounds in 40 days. That was awesome. I now can pull back a little bit on the intensity of the calorie deficit. And I didn't really actually train any different. And I didn't add any cardio at the beginning, but I could have. I just simply started with a big caloric reduction. And I was starting with a nice, healthy, happy metabolism because I was eating just whatever I kind of wanted that didn't make me fat. But I wasn't really worried about what my weight was at that time. I was eating at a comfortable amount. My wife was doing her shows. We were also traveling for her grad school. We were traveling to Canada, then London, then LA, then Texas, and it was crazy. We were everywhere. So I was eating to not get fat, but not eating to lose weight, just kind of eating happy. And that left my metabolism in a healthy, happy state. So then when I started the diet, I was like, well, my body's churning and burning through X amount. Let me just go really far under that. Let my body stay in that churning and burning mode and then go, oh crap, what the heck? And then it tears off a bunch of body fat to adjust. And then as it adjusts, I can then bring my deficit up a little bit, reduce stress on the body, let cortisol come down, let my joints and muscles repair, let everything get kind of back to a healthy state, but now I can do it at a healthier rate of loss. So 30 pounds in 40 days is very aggressive. I can then mitigate, kind of reduce some of that chaos, and instead of averaging, say, 5 pounds of loss a week, I can lessen the intensity of what I'm doing and aim for 3. Then as that starts to plateau or it gets too intense, I can reduce down to 2 pounds per week, then maybe 1 pound per week. This allows me to start super aggressive, so crash early, and then do the opposite of what people normally do. As my body becomes more depleted, more stressed, more just worn out, as my discipline would become more questionable, my willpower is questionable, as my energy would start to be like, oh gosh, I don't want to do anything, I now can ask less and less and less of myself, but still get all the results I want. And this has been a much better approach than what I've done in the past to myself and what people typically do, which is they start with small progressions, then get crazy at the end. So that's what I want to do in today's podcast is promote that you do what I'm doing, is crash early when you want to lose weight, And I want to discuss the 5 benefits that are kind of top of mind when I think of the reasons why it would be good to use this approach. So the first benefit, I have my little notes, is a responsive metabolism. So I already talked about that, is when you're starting, you're hopefully starting from a place where your metabolism was churning and burning through whatever you were eating. It's responsive, the body's happy, so all of a sudden if you create a deficit, it's running at full speed and it expects to stay at full speed. When you give it less fuel, it has a delay in which then it responds by trying to lessen how many calories it burns. During that delay, you burn off an enormous amount of fat. So it's an extremely beneficial state to be in physically to optimize fat loss. You'll be in the most advantageous position in the entire diet process for fat loss compared to muscle loss if you do this approach. So you will maximize body composition by having a very responsive metabolism if you start the diet with an aggressive approach. The second is when we start, we often have our highest level of motivation, highest amount of discipline, highest amount of willpower. So if we ask our body to do the most, when we have the most to give, that makes the most sense. I want to have the most calorie deficit, the most aggressive in my training, the most whatever, when I want to give it the most. And then, as my willpower drops off, my discipline drops off, as fatigue increases, I can ask less and less and less because I'm already, quote unquote, ahead. I've already made great progress. So I can lessen the intensity of what I'm asking my body to do as I have less to do it with. So that's super helpful. The third thing is it is motivating when you start a diet and you see enormous amounts of progress at first. The least motivating part of any diet is the middle, because you've been putting in a lot of effort, you don't quite see the results you want yet, so you're frustrated. And this is something when you're trying to lose body fat, it's often referred to as like a skinny fat or feeling flat, is you've lost a lot of weight on the scale, but you're not super ripped yet. So it's like, oh man, is this even working? Am I getting anything I want? Yeah, the scale's gone down, but I don't look much better, in the mirror. And that middle portion can be very demotivating. If you start the process with a huge jump in progress, you'll have all this positive momentum, emotional and physical, to carry you through that middle section. When we start with small steps and get small progressions, and then you're asked to do more and more when you're not seeing what you want to see yet, that's so demotivating. Why would I want to give more when it feels like what I'm doing now isn't even working? So if we flip that script, it helps us push through that middle phase of the diet, and you're going to have a much better kind of motivating experience through that middle phase. Number 4 is we can reduce intensity later if we start more aggressive. So as we go through a diet, we are going to become emotionally and mentally stressed. If we crash early, if we start aggressive, when we're the most emotionally and mentally full, when we have the most restorative, kind of the best state of ourselves, is when we can kind of give the most. And then as we go through that process, we're getting great results, but we are ticking away at our emotional, mental discipline and stress and capacity. As that starts to dwindle, what we ask of ourselves can come down and dwindle. It can be less and less and less. So as our emotional and mental state becomes more and more compromised, what we ask of ourselves to do can become less and less and less, and it's a much better matching of what we're asked to do versus what we feel capable to do. And then number 5 is less anxiety. Most people, when they start calm, like start not aggressive, and then get aggressive towards the end, they have a ton of anxiety of whether or not they're going to make it. So if you think about a contest prep, you have a date in mind. You need to be lean by X date. If you get closer and closer and closer and you don't feel like you're lean yet, that's higher and higher and higher and higher and higher anxiety. If we start aggressive, you can actually say, hey, I've made great progress so far. I feel like I'm doing well. I can see that the rate I'm going at is good. And now all of a sudden, as we get closer and closer to the end, it doesn't feel like you have to do as much to get where you want to get to, and you have much less anxiety. So crashing early, starting aggressive with contest preps has a ton of benefits. What I talked about in today's podcast is just 5. There's many more. But it's a great approach that I would definitely recommend that people do. And if you're interested in learning how to set this up, you can reach out to us on our website, which is www.c3method.com. The 3 is spelled out T-H-R-E-E, so C-T-H-R-E-E method.com. You can reach out there and sign up for a free consultation. I'll chit-chat with you, talk about your goals. We'll see what approach might work best, and then we can decide if we would pair together to work well for your contest. So if you want to learn more about this, if you want to kind of see how we would approach it specific to you, you can sign up on the website. Awesome. Then also you can find other information from us on our Instagram and YouTube under the name C3 Method. If you like the podcast, please share the podcast. The more people we share it with, the more people can help. And I think that's it. So as always, I hope this was helpful. And thank you for listening.